Hello, my name is Katie Peters. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Grandin Equine Center at Colorado State University. Today I'll be presenting on the results of a systematic mapping review of peer-reviewed literature pertaining to equine-assisted services. The background to this study began when the Grandin Equine Center was launched in 2013 with a mission to advance research and education in equine-assisted services. To decide how to launch our programs of research, we needed a strong understanding of the current state of knowledge in equine-assisted services. Therefore, Dr. Wendy Wood, our Director of Research, launched our inaugural study, a systematic mapping review. The purpose of the study was to systematically map peer-reviewed literature pertaining to equine-assisted services for individuals with a variety of health and human conditions. Systematic mapping reviews are conducted in 4 phases. First, relevant peer-reviewed literature is identified through database searches. Next, papers are included or excluded from the review based on a set of criteria. Relevant data is extracted from each paper. And finally, data are analyzed to create a comprehensive map of the body of literature. Our first round of searches identified papers published from 1980 to 2015. From those years, we have included 397 peer-reviewed papers focused on equine-assisted services. These represent both research reports as well as non-research papers, such as papers focused on theoretical foundations of various equine-assisted services. We've conducted several searches since in order to continually stay abreast of new research. In subsequent searches, we have included 265 additional papers published from 2016 to 2020. Therefore, it's evident that research on equine-assisted services has been growing quickly in recent years. I'll begin by providing a broad overview of the results and then provide an example of a more targeted review. These results represent papers from 1980 to 2015, as the 2016 to 2020 papers have not yet been fully analyzed. This graph demonstrates both research papers in orange and non-research papers in yellow from 1980 to 2015. Since the early 2000s, research on equine-assisted services has been steadily growing. Within the domain of therapies incorporating horses, 99 papers pertained to hippotherapy, while 49 papers pertained to equine-assisted psychotherapy, and 20 did not further specify the type of therapy. In the domain of equine-assisted activities, the most common type was therapeutic riding, which was the focus of 86 papers represented in orange. 15 papers related to equine-assisted learning, while very few papers addressed therapeutic driving or therapeutic vaulting. These graphs represent a large map of literature, a grand overview of the body of literature. To dive deeper into the results, we have published several targeted reviews. For the sake of time, I'll go through one such targeted review focused on hippotherapy. This review identified 78 studies of hippotherapy. Participants in these studies were mostly youth, and the most common diagnosis by far was cerebral palsy, represented in 41 papers. The next most common diagnoses were Down syndrome and multiple sclerosis, represented in 6 papers each. Providers in these studies were mostly physical therapists, found in 41 studies, followed next by occupational therapists, found in 6 studies. The most prevalent outcomes included improved motor control and improved gait. Methodologically, the bulk of the research represents early stages of scientific development. 59 studies implemented quasi-experimental designs. However, some of the research is beginning to implement methods more indicative of more advanced scientific development. 4 studies have published intervention protocols, and 14 randomized controlled trials were implemented. That is all the time we have for today to dive into these types of targeted results. So I want to leave you all with one main takeaway. Looking at this body of literature, it became clear to our team that despite the prevalence of literature on equine-assisted services, almost 400 studies, the bulk of this research has not moved past small, quasi-experimental pilot studies. In considering why this might be, our team recognized that there is a lack of programs of research that systematically and progressively develop and evaluate equine-assisted services through an iterative progression of research. The Medical Research Council asserts that complex interventions are best empirically developed and evaluated in an iterative phased approach pictured here. Investigators must spend considerable time on intervention development, including identifying relevant theory, developing critical elements of the intervention, and determining appropriate outcomes. Attention must also be devoted to piloting the intervention and control, and assessing feasibility and acceptability. These foundational research tasks are essential to support evaluating efficacy using rigorous designs, such as randomized controlled trials. In the current body of research on equine-assisted services, very little attention is paid to these key developmental tasks. Instead, most investigators have moved immediately toward evaluating outcomes, using designs that are honestly not intended to definitively determine efficacy. Therefore, while this body of literature demonstrates promise and proof of concept that various equine-assisted services can benefit people with a wide range of health and human conditions, we encourage further research to be done, paying particular attention to foundational research tasks before moving forward with evaluating outcomes. As for research occurring at the Temple Grandin Equine Center, we've decided to focus our research efforts in three main areas. We will continue with our systematic mapping reviews, and we have also spent the past several years building programs of research on two distinct types of equine-assisted services, namely occupational therapy in an equine environment for youth with autism, and Riding in the Moment, an equine-assisted activity for persons with dementia. Both of these programs of research have been focused thus far on foundational research tasks, including intervention manual development, control group development, and assessing feasibility, acceptability, and preliminary efficacy. We have published several papers on these early phases of research and hope to soon move into larger scale efficacy research. All I have for today. Thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity to present.